Okay, thanks, Marg. I'm not good with details, so I'm going to ask people to let me know what they remember of the whole adventure of Sacred Harp. I'll just say that while the rest of Old Sod was trying to recreate England in Ottawa, what Sacred Harp did was to recreate a little bit of the old American South in Ottawa, and it came about because, well, Max and I moved to Ottawa in early 1983. Summer of 1983, or the fall, and I guess Old Sod had just incorporated, had just gotten together, and at some point. And where we stayed when we came, I had known Ian forever, since basically since he arrived at Fiddler's Green in Toronto, where I was involved fairly intensely, and we had known each other through the years. And so when Max and I moved to Ottawa, we stayed with Ian and Val. They put us up until we found a place to live. Then we went back, moved back here, and at some point during that fall, Ian said to me, "Why don't you start a Sacred Harp group here?" And the reason he said that to me was he knew that I had Sacred Harp groups wherever I had lived before coming to Ottawa. I'd been introduced to Sacred Harp by Dave Siglin of the Ark Coffee House in Ann Arbor. Told me about this great music that they were learning to do. I got some recordings of the music. The music had started in the 1800s, early 1800s in England, as a way to teach people how to read music. It was sacred music, it was hymns. And but in the last 100 years, where it had flourished was in the rural South, and people sang there in a particularly intense and beautiful way. And when I heard recordings of this music, I thought, I have to do this. The effect on me was visceral. It just felt so fantastic to hear this music. I wanted to make it myself. And so I started groups wherever I was. This is 4-part choral music. You can't do it without other people. And I think the first place that I tried to do it was in Toronto. There was a sort of what we call the Mennonite Mafia that was part of Fiddler's Green, the Fiddler's Green community. And they were terrific singers. And we got a bunch of books from Georgia, Sacred Harp books. And we figured out how to read it, how to read the music, how to use the music. It was not easy. We learned how to because people could read music without the shapes, and trying to learn the shapes and sing them was quite a task, but we managed to do it. I believe after that I went to Newfoundland. I had a group. I was there for 4 years. I had a group there, but I'm not sure if that's the case. But certainly by the time I went to Philadelphia to study University of Pennsylvania, I started a group there. And so when I got to Ottawa, Ian knew about this and asked me to start a group, and I said, sure. And Ian provided the community, the singers. And we met. And we met in people's living rooms. And I basically taught people how to read the music. And they were fantastic. People were wonderful because they were able to take over my task. I was working a lot out of town in those years. I was working in upstate New York. I was working in New York City. In those days, it was easy to go over the border and actually work. So people had learned the music, they had taken it in, and they were singing it in my absence. I would come back and we would resume. And this was the very first, I can tell you, the only date that I can tell you for sure of our very first meeting was January the 10th, 1984. Because I came home from that first Sacred Harp session, and Max said, my water broke. And we headed off to the hospital, and our daughter Mika was born the next day, January 11th, 1984. So the first years till 84 to 1990, we were basically building the community, and acquiring the skills, learning how to sing this music, and people were getting better and better and better at it. We were meeting in each other's living rooms. Tim and Marg, I think, was the first living rooms we sang in after Ian's attic, which Catherine reminded me about. And then at Catherine's house, and people came in and joined us. I don't know exactly how we recruited, how people heard about us, but what was beginning to happen is we had this sort of centripetal effect where we were starting to do concerts, and we were starting to sing outside of living rooms. We unfortunately, Sacred Harp music is wonderful music for funerals. And we sang at some funeral services for the loved ones of members or people who had who knew of our music and wanted it there. We sang. We submitted a song to the CBC choral music contest twice. The first time we were dismissed out of hand as being monochrome and strident. And we were surprised that those things which we worked so hard to sound like disqualified us from real choral music. But the next time we submitted a song, we placed, and we were played on the radio. So that was quite a thing. We appeared at the Ottawa Folk Festival, or I was asked to do a workshop on Sacred Harp at the Ottawa Folk Festival. People came, and they were our secret singers when I was trying to tell people how easy it was to sing Sacred Harp, to learn how to read these shapes. I had folks in the audience who could already read, and we just had people singing within about 20 minutes. Had people singing this gorgeous music. The other thing that happened is that it wasn't just in the Ottawa community where we were heard. We started to go. Sacred Harp was being revived in New England and New York, Upper New York State, actually all over the American North, and there were singings, huge singings, gatherings of singers in Boston, Middletown, Connecticut, Burlington, Vermont. And I had been going down to them for years to see how it was done, to learn more about leading the music, to take workshops myself. But then folks from our group, from the old Sod group, started to come down as well. Catherine and I flew to Boston and just made this huge, incredible sing on a Friday night. It was one of the most marvelous things I had ever heard and been part of. And we continued to go down and take part in these singings, and they were either very, very large, or there were a couple in Vermont where we sang in a wooden church on a Sunday morning. And it was, again, a very magical place to sing, the wooden walls, the closeness of it, the intimacy of it, and yet this amazing, amazing choral sound from everybody who knew and loved this music. And so two of our members, Pippa, who we had been visiting in the Eastern Townships when they moved out there, we sang out there, they came back and they moved outside of town, and there was a wooden church, a wooden a community center in Carsonby, just outside of Ottawa, about a 25-minute drive out of Ottawa. And so they started to have singings there once a year, and they invited singers from the States to come, and people came. And then Ottawa, rather than going and visiting, Ottawa became a destination for other singers. And there was the Carsonby, and we one of the great exhilarating and nightmarish things that happened was we had a busload of Southern singers who had come to the singing in Vermont that year. They decided that they would come and see the leaves in Ottawa, the changing leaves in Ottawa, and so they came up, and they stayed at a hotel, and we hosted them in an event that we hoped was familiar to them, a dinner and a singing, and it was an amazing experience, and they kept on talking about how they were going to help us out in our singing, and it was quite a thing. The other way that we sort of were centripetal in a way of going out was that Ian, who was part of the group, part of the Sacred Harp Singers for a while, liked one of the songs a whole lot. We'll all sing Hallelujah, and he transformed that song into the Singer's Farewell, and he put it on his Rose and Crown album in 1985. And I was there at the session, and I was able to overlay a sort of southern type high part that I think that was part of the song. And my own song, Fa Sol La, about learning how to do the music and being part of the community. I also was able to try that out on the Sacred Harp, the Old Sod Sacred Harp group. In 1990, Ian brought a book back from England of pub carols. These were carols that were sung in Yorkshire pubs, and they were. I brought the book. I Xeroxed it, I guess, to the Sacred, one of our Sacred Harp weekly meetings, and we tried it out, and it was glorious music. And so we got a bunch of the books, and we learned several of the songs, and then we took them outside to people's houses. We toured Catherine's neighborhood, I think it was, and knocked on people's doors, and we sang them a song from one of these books. They're delightful carols, old carols, nobody knows them, or they're different enough from familiar carols that they sound new. And the next year, instead of shivering outside people's houses, I was able to someone arranged for us to actually do this the way they should be done, which is in a pub at the Swan and Carp. And we met there, we sang, we had a wonderful, wonderful time. And we did this for several years. I guess we all got books, because a lot of people have these books. They were hellish difficult to read, as you can see, because the parts were all jammed together at the top. And eventually I got a Mac computer, and I transcribed the music in 4 parts that you could actually read. And then in the mid 90s, the Ottawa Folklore Center asked me if I would do the pub caroling, lead pub caroling for them as one of their programs. And eventually pub caroling became something that was done by, that was sponsored by the Ottawa Folklore Center. And we published a book of the English songs plus American and Canadian songs, and it became an activity. I moved over to leading Sacred Harp for the Folklore Center in the mid 90s, I think, and I guess Sacred Harp continued on. Our group sort of moved in and out of each other and shared singers. And I sort of stepped out of it because I was working a lot outside of town. And I believe it has continued, and so has pub caroling. Pub caroling is still done. Many leaders beyond me, and Sacred Harp, I think, is still happening. So it was a marvelous thing to be part of, a fabulous welcome into the Ottawa, into Ottawa and the Ottawa folk community for us. And I'm glad to have been a part of it. And I will now hand this over to Catherine.